At the request of Spirit's board and follows JetBlue's review and discussions with Spirit's management team is an update to JetBlue's previous offers. The low-cost carriers board said it expects to finish merger talks with both Frontier and JetBlue and update investors on its decision ahead of a June 30th stockholders meeting. Hilary Barsky, Fox News.
A brush fire has broken out near the famous Hollywood sign in the Hollywood Hills area of Los Angeles. It's charred at least 2 acres. So far, no evacuations. A startling discovery during a traffic stop over the weekend in California.
The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office says deputies found live ammunition, black gunpowder, and an improvised military-grade explosive device during a traffic stop over the weekend. The deputies were reportedly led to a nearby compound where even more weapons were found. Jeffrey and David Russell, along with Venus Mooney, are all facing a host of charges, but the trio claims they're sovereign citizens, meaning they reside in the country, but they're not part of the United States. That appears unlikely to hold up in court. Tom Graham, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY. Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie.
So we start another exciting, elucidating, educational episode of Tall Tales today with no help from the Pacific Daily News. Here's what the Daily News says. Our view, agricultural opportunities abound. I wonder what island they live on. Be part of the sustainability movement. Beekeepers on Guam are producing their own mead, honey, and beeswax. Farmers, experienced and new to the game, are cultivating, growing, eating, and selling their own bananas, mangoes, and other fruits and vegetables. And through the University of Guam, interns are gaining important experience on the Triton Farm and at the Guam Agricultural Training Center, the Valley of the Latte, and the Farm to Table Guam Corporation. Together, these aspiring farmers, agriculturalists, agriculture interns, beekeepers, and ranchers are contributing to Guam's growing sustainability movement. These up-and-coming producers are part of an important shift occurring on Guam as residents look for a more environmentally friendly and financially sustainable way of life. And as families struggle to keep up with increasing costs of nearly every part of everyday life on Guam, we encourage anyone with the slightest interest in any aspect of the agriculture and aquaculture industries to take advantage of the opportunities being offered by UOG and the many organizations who have made it their mission to increase sustainability on Guam. Start out with Amanda Shelton, whose brother runs the program at the university. Thanks to UOG's work, the institution was awarded a $450,000 grant that's not only helping students, but also giving the school the support needed to share its agricultural mission with the community. With their help, new farmers and ranchers are getting the assistance and guidance they need. They've even provided military veterans with a greenhouse and given new producers support with important resources like soil, compost, seedlings. I should talk to Adrian Cruz over at Department of Agriculture, who is the island manure specialist. If you want to know anything about manure, check with the Deputy Director of Agriculture, Adrian Cruz.
Especially if you're not sure what's wafting.
Exactly. Quote, we've supported more than 200 participants to date and are seeing increasing interest from more farmers as well as organizations wanting to partner to support the farming community on island, said Adrian Aris, Interim Associate Dean for Research at UOG's College of Natural and Applied Sciences. Agricultural sustainability is trending throughout the world, and we encourage everyone to nurture their green thumbs and be part of the movement. Start small, grow big, and find out how you can contribute to a more locally sustainable way of life for you, for your families, and for Guam. You know, this all sounds so good, but I wonder how much has been spent on it? How much does it cost to hire the Interim Associate Dean for Research and Adrian Cruz, a $450,000 grant? I've gone into this before, but let's try again. You know, there's something called comparative advantage. There was a guy back in, I think it was the 17th century, a guy named David Ricardo, a pioneer economist, who laid out comparative advantage for us. And the idea of comparative advantage is you engage in the economic activities that you are best able to engage in because you can do it well. And as an example, you could raise bananas in Alaska. If you had the greenhouse and all that stuff, you could raise bananas in Alaska. And you could raise shrimp in Ecuador. Or you'd have to have, you know, all kinds of cooling devices to cool the water down. You could do those things, but why would you want to? Wouldn't it make more sense for folks in Alaska to sell their cold water stuff like shrimp to Ecuador and buy bananas from Ecuador? Comparative advantage. So an island like Manhattan, you could grow watermelons on Manhattan. But how much would those watermelons cost you? You know, when you figure how much a square foot of land in Manhattan costs, you could do it, but no one with any sense would even want to. So you grow watermelons in a place where you've got a comparative advantage, and in New Manhattan, you do the things that you can do better there than you can do somewhere else. And that's what we need to start thinking about here. Given the way our island is set up, it would not be commercially feasible to undertake large amounts of agriculture. There's very few large land holdings left anymore. So, you know, you take you take 10, 100 by 100 lots, maybe that's enough to start a reasonable farm. How much is it going to cost you to buy that land, to consolidate them, to build those lots? It just doesn't make sense. There are other things that we can do here better than agriculture, and we need to figure out what those are and concentrate on them. Of course, the magic word nowadays is sustainability, and we have lots of fancy titles, and we're spending a lot of tax money on it. But I really don't see, other than Ernie Wustig, and Ernie Wustig did this after going to the University of Ernie Wustig. I haven't seen much for a long, long time, and I doubt that I will. Okay, we've got an early bird here on the show, and that would be Repeat, who wants to talk about sustainability. Go ahead, Repeat.
Good afternoon, Uncle Bob. You know, it's I guess, along the lines of sustainability, but I have been shopping at the commissary, and if you've heard, a lot of the shelves were bare. Like a couple weeks ago, I went and there wasn't a single bag of chicken in the whole commissary. And, you know, I was talking to the cashier and she was apologizing why, you know, that they have shortages. And I said, no, you know, I always look at the silver lining. You know, maybe if there's a food shortage, maybe obesity rates will go down on Guam. You know,
Sure.
Maybe we'll start eating those chickens in the backyard, like we always used to. You know, I always had that was part of my job growing up. Whenever my grandmother wanted carimpika, I had to go catch a couple of hens and butcher them for her. You know.
Sure.
So we got to get back to basics. We can't just always rely on things magically appearing. I'm not saying we're going to replace it, but we gotta be able to have a fallback. But I agree that large-scale agriculture would not only be unsustainable, but it would also be destructive to a lot of the environment.
Okay. So,
All
how many people that you associate with grow anything at the place where they live? Repeat.
Well, I have traditional family, and so a lot of my family do grow their own tomatoes and peppers and whatnot. And I keep pigs and ducks and chickens. There are quite a few folks that I know that do the same thing, but we're not the majority. We're the minority.
Okay, well, I can tell you've got more important things to do than talking to me, Repeat, so I won't hold you any longer. Good talking to you.
All right.
So long. Yeah.
But you know, again, this is another op-ed that was repeated from last week. Same thing about sustainability and agriculture.
Yeah.
It's another ho-hum, let's thank, and not really bite. And the point about how dangerous farming is, and I know people, what do you mean dangerous? It's good for you. It's sustainable. The danger of putting out this blanket statement of sustainability is nobody takes into consideration what they're putting to the ground to sway the bugs and all the pests that come through.
Yeah.
Because there's a influx of pesticides that go into the ground if people don't know what they're doing. Also, when they're just constantly digging up the earth and trying to plant more things, they're really not sustaining anything because they're taking all those nutrients out of the ground and replacing them with nothing. So people need to learn what they're doing, not just have this blanket statement of throw seeds in the ground and harvest everything and you're going to live forever off the everything that you grow. If it's an op-ed, do something that's actually a little bit more biteable.
Yeah, well, sustainability is the buzzword of the day. So if you can write about sustainability, that's all you need to do. Here's something else, Jose. The tropics are not good for agriculture in general. Some things grow very well in the tropics, but everything else grows very well in the tropics also. All of those little bugs and pests and things like that. So, if you're in the right place and you know what you're doing and you're very resource intensive, you can grow oranges. Oranges grow here, but how hard would it be to grow enough oranges so that you could make a deal with Payless so they'd sell your oranges?
You keep calling them oranges, but they're green.
No, they're not. They're actually orange.
They're orange? They're green.
Yeah. We'll have to ask Paul Zerzan for the color test of what color our oranges really are. Okay, we beat up the editorial enough, I guess, already. Let's go on to the card and see what we've got on the card. And of course, we start out with Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. And then we'll have another episode of Everybody Knows. We're going to go to Joe San Augustine versus Clint, which will give me a chance to go back into Clint versus motorists, as I did yesterday. I wasn't quite finished. And then we've got Gura versus Michael San Nicolas, Joe Biden versus Lou Leon Guerrero, OPA, that's BJ, versus Two Mares, Cruz versus Champion, Levin versus Repeat, our very Repeat, Marxism versus the USA, and Dersh and Turley versus Nancy. So, once again, systemic racism. You'll recall that Paul Zerzan dropped the dime on people who call what you're seeing in the picture here, the Kentucky Fried ad, call it red rice. Zerzan came back and said, it ain't red, it's orange. It's time we started calling it what it really is. And the Daily News came back and tried to cancel him. You leave our red rice alone. You can play with other things, but not our red rice. Okay, going on to Everybody Knows. I got into a couple of Everybody Knows yesterdays, like lightning never strikes twice in the same place twice, or some people are left-brained and some people are right-brained, and then, of course, some people are half-wits. Here's number 3. A defibrillator can jump-start a stopped heart. That's what you always see in the movies. Somebody's got a cardiac arrest, his heart is stopped. They put the paddles on his heart and turn the power on, and the guy jumps. And all of a sudden, there he is. He's back to life. They are used to help irregular heartbeats. If a heart is completely stopped, call AAA. Being told somebody might take that seriously, so here's a disclaimer. If somebody's heart stops, don't call AAA, call 911. Better advice. 4, hair and nails continue to grow after a person dies. This is a rumor started by manicurists and barbers. Nah, dead people don't start looking like old Howard Hughes before he died. Actually, what happens is skin shrinks. So we'll come back to tomorrow with some more Everybody Knows. All right, let's take a look and see who screwed up the Public Law 36-34 compliance today. Going through the agendas here, this is not a screw-up. This is the Land Use Commission, which has gotten it down pretty well. But item 5 on their agenda for their meeting for June 23, 5B, formal complaint, Dedido firing range. Now, I wonder what that's all about. You know, I thought only the separatists were complaining about firing ranges. And then we've got the Public Defender Service Corporation, signed by Chief Justice F. Philip Carbolito. Item 7, new business. Nothing. We don't know what the new business is. So as I read that, that means they're going to talk about something they haven't talked about before and maybe act upon it, but we aren't supposed to know what it is. Therefore, everything that you decide at the meeting is void. Public Defender Service Corporation. And we go on to, this is kind of juicy. This is from the Airport Authority. Notice of hearing, intent to extend emergency contract. Now, there's a long text here, and I will read the long text first. GIA's procurement of management and infrastructure support services to GIA's baggage conveyance system has been stayed by a protest and subsequent appeal to the Office of the Public Auditor. The Public Auditor dismissed the appeal, and the matter is currently pending before the Superior Court. Thus, the stay remains in place. On or about October 26, 2021, GIAA certified and determined the existence of an emergency due to the imminent potential for the interruption of services caused by the protest and pending appeal. The resulting threat to public health, safety, and welfare of passengers and users of the airport and the daily operations of the airport due to such disruption. On November 1, 2021, GIA entered into a contract with Aircraft Services International, Inc., DBA Menzies Aviation. Sound familiar, Jose? Yeah. I got a buddy who knows all about this. Menzies Aviation procured on an emergency basis in accordance with Guam procurement law and implementing regulations. The contract provided for an initial term of 30 days and has since been extended as allowed by law. GIAA previously convened public hearings on December 22, 2021 and March 24, 2022 in order to extend the contract beyond the first and second 90-day periods. GIAA has again determined the need and thus intends to extend the contract with Menzies for an additional 90-day period, etc. So Menzies versus Ed Ilau's company. What was the name of that company? I don't remember. But you remember Ed Ilau and Buddy Orsini had a nice round of correspondence where Ed said, can you tell us that Menzies doesn't have a procurement license? It'd really help us out with this procurement appeal. And Buddy sends it right back. Buddy used to be the director of the Contractors Licensing Board. He didn't last long after this one came to light. So there's 2 paragraphs here of description. Now I will read you the agenda for the June 23 meeting of the airport Board of Directors. Item number 1, call to order and attendance. Item number 2, public comments. Item number 3, adjournment. Is something missing there? So, Ed Ilau, if you're listening and this doesn't go the way you want it to, you've got at least a colorable challenge here because the agenda doesn't put us on notice as to what's going to be discussed. There's this really nice narrative.
That's about it.
A really nice story. It doesn't start with once upon a time. It doesn't end with amen.
And it's not on the agenda.
And it's not on the agenda. So I wonder if there's a talent pool out in GovGuam, if there are a couple dozen people that do all of the agendas, and the criteria for being hired for the job is inability to read and follow directions. How can you screw something up this badly? All right. Next item on the card is Joe San Augustine versus Clint. And it's kind of Joe San Augustine versus Therese Tetlahi also. This is something that ran in Canada News just this afternoon. 76 gas stations to drop gas prices tonight. Will gas prices drop by 18 to 23 cents after midnight tonight? That's when Public Law 36-105, suspending the liquid fuel tax on unleaded gas, goes into effect for the next 180 days. According to at least one of the island's 3 gas providers, prices will drop at least 2 hours before then. Except for liquid fuel used for commercial aviation purposes, the levy of excise taxes on liquid fuel shall be waived for the period that this act is in effect. The law passed by the legislature Friday night and signed by Governor Leon Guerrero this afternoon states, according to the law, it's effective upon enactment, which means it will be midnight tonight. You don't really need to put that clause in every single bill you pass, that it's effective on enactment, because if you look at Title I, there's a section there that says that a bill is effective midnight tonight, signed midnight the day of that the bill is overridden, or midnight of the day, 10 days, Sundays accepted after the bill passed. You don't have to put effective immediately in the bill. According to South Pacific Petroleum Marketing Director Mike Hernandez, prices will drop at least 2 hours before enactment at 76 gas stations throughout the island. SPC controls 76 gas stations. People will see it at the pump by 10 p.m. tonight, Hernandez confirmed. It's unclear at this time how much the price will go down. Well, one would think that it'll go down 23 cents. In fact, if it doesn't, this would put the station that holds it at someplace other than a 23% reduction at something of a disadvantage, because customers can buy their gas anywhere. Now, there are loyalty programs in at least 2 of the stations, so people tend to stick with a station where they have a loyalty program. But if 76 cut theirs by 23 cents, and Shell did, and Mobil did not, I think in anger, people would go out of their way to go to 76 and Shell just to punish Mobil. Senators estimated the full suspension of the tax and associated fees on gasoline would shave 23% off the price of a gallon of gas. Both IP&E, the parent company of Shell, and SPPC wrote to senators months ago to inform them they will pass the gas tax savings directly to its customers. Mobil Guam, the island other gas distributor, did not provide like testimony. Quote, here's a quote from Senator Joe San Augustine. It's about the people of Guam, and that's all that matters, from San Augustine. San Augustine's measure is nearly identical to legislation defeated Friday. Legislation by Speaker Therese Talai defeated Friday, which would have eliminated the liquid fuel tax indefinitely. Quote, we've endeavored to support gas tax relief for months now, Talai said at the law signing at Adelup today. This is a good first step to what is sorely needed, and that's to ensure families can benefit from this tax relief. The Speaker, in her remarks, said she wants the relief permanently provided, for the governor to use additional federal funds to provide financial stimulus and utilities cost relief to Guam residents. What we're facing today with our economy is an inflation that is a result of what has been a consequential outcome of the pandemic. Well, because after the pandemic, our national government spent so much money that they created the inflation. Don't listen to what anybody, it's not Russia, it's not the pandemic, it's the Fed printing so much money. The more money there is out there chasing the same amount of goods, the less your money is worth. It's just a simple fact of economics. The rising cost of gas release is not related to the pandemic. It's related to the Ukraine conflict. It's related to the geopolitical situation that's happening here. That's what the governor said. They're both wrong. And of course, they're both wrong because they're Democrats. They want as much government spending as possible, and they don't want anything to think that runaway government spending causes inflation, because that's what they want. They want inflation and they want runaway government spending. That's why they're called Democrats. While senators have previously stated the act would bring 23 cents per gallon in relief, the governor, in her remarks shortly before the law's signing, stated the relief would only be 18 cents a gallon. Maybe it's because she's got sloppy handwriting and couldn't read her writing. Bill Bill
Never said
290
18 cents.
Bill 295 was meant to help our struggling families who already have to pay increase in groceries, increase in services, now have to deal with an increase in gas. This bill will now provide some help. It's truly an honor to sign Bill 295. Now on the record is Public Law 36-105. Let's hope that the gas stations are better at observing the new law than your agencies are at observing Public Law 36-34, Governor. Okay, and then that is an approach that works. You know, one thing that the government can do for sure, it can raise taxes and it can lower taxes. And as a general proposition, lowering taxes is better for the people. Raising taxes does not help the people. Silly ideas like Clint fining companies that make too much profit, it's not going to help the people. It's not even going to help you, Clint, because you're not running for re-election, so all your demagoguery is going to go to waste. And then, of course, I got to come back to this paragraph. According to the Senator Rigel, the Guam Waterworks Authority recently entered into a multi-year contract to receive regular grade fuel at $2.92 a gallon and diesel at $2.80 a gallon. Prices were based on Platts Asia Pacific market scan for Singapore cargoes plus service charge. Why was GWA able to buy gas for its fleet at $2.92 a gallon? Why is gasoline so much cheaper on base? I think it must be because the oil and gasoline companies on Guam have massive profit margins. Massive profit margins that are breaking the backs of the people. Yeah, Clint. Well, right after the big halftime show yesterday, between the halftime show and Hopeless Cristobal's screen test, Simon Sanchez, who knows the utilities racket inside out, called us and told us that what happened was that the GWA entered into a long-term contract to buy gasoline and diesel fuel at $2.92 per gallon above the market price. Sorry about that, Clint, but you got caught with your... Pull up your pants, Clint. You got caught with your pants down. All right, let's take a short break here. Will Clint adjust his trousers?
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
We're all Red Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, next we're going to talk a little bit about Michael San Nicolas. And if Michael San Nicolas is elected, and I think he's got a very good chance of being elected, he will have the honor of carrying the second largest load of scandal into election of anyone that ever ran for governor.
Who was the first?
His name was Ricky Berdalio. Yeah.
That did not end well.
Yeah, it did not end well for Governor Ricky Berdalio. Okay, here's a story from the Post. Judge, Guam False Claims Act not retroactive. Delegate and his dad await court decisions. The Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority lawsuit against Delegate Michael San Nicolas and his father, Miguel San Nicolas, has been set on hold as the court determines whether to reconsider a decision in another Gura lawsuit involving similar factors. That other case was filed against Antoinette Rodriguez, the sister of former Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr. Back in March, Superior Court Judge Dana Gutierrez granted a motion to dismiss 4 counts of false or fraudulent claims in the Rodriguez case after finding that Guam's False Claims and Whistleblower Act was not retroactive. Okay, we'll get into ex post facto laws here before we're done. Gura requested a reconsideration of the decision. Well, parties in the matter involving the delegate and his father were set to argue a motion. The delegate, that's Michael San Nicolas. Well, parties in the matter involving Michael and his father were set to argue a motion to dismiss the case on Monday. Gutierrez stated that the reconsideration would affect how the case proceeds. In the interest of judicial efficiency, she found it appropriate to hold in abeyance the dismissal motion for the father and son until the court decides on the reconsideration motion in the Rodriguez case. Both lawsuits involved alleged false claims while acting as landlords in the federally funded Section 8 housing program. Michael San Nicolas was a senator who had direct oversight over Gura, which posed a conflict of interest when he continued to be a landlord in the Section 8 program, according to the Gura lawsuit against him. Meanwhile, his father was involved in his political career, and as an immediate family member, Miguel San Nicolas also had a conflict of interest, the lawsuit contends. Antoinette Rodriguez also allegedly failed to disclose that her brother was a senator, according to the decision in her case. Former Senator Rodriguez is not a defendant in this matter. In moving the court to dismiss the 4 counts of false or fraudulent claims against Rodriguez, primarily based on her motion on the argument that the local FCWA False Claims and Whistleblower Act cannot apply retroactively and can only apply to claims made after its effective date of August 24, 2018. Gura, on the other hand, argued that the FCWA must be considered retroactive by necessary implication. The claims against Antoinette Rodriguez involve a timeline from January 2011 through June 2018. For the delegate and his father, the years of interest stem from 2013 to 2017. Between 2013 and 2017, Michael San Nicolas reportedly received $54,041 in lease payments. Miguel San Nicolas entered into a housing contract as a Section 8 landlord in September 2013, and from October 2013 until the end of October 2017, he reportedly received about $76,186 under the contract. Judge Gutierrez ultimately determined that the Guam FCWA is not retroactive, and the relevant claims against Antoinette Rodriguez must be dismissed because there's nothing for which the court can grant relief. Quote, here, even assuming that all the allegations in Gura's complaint are true, Gura's FCWA claims against Rodriguez rely upon the alleged conduct of Rodriguez occurring from on or about January 2011 through as late as 2018. This means that even assuming that all the allegations contained in the complaint are true, all Rodriguez's alleged conduct in violation of the FCWA occurred prior to the FCWA's enactment of August 24, 2018, Gutierrez decision stated. Now, a statute that imposes liability can be retroactive, but there has to be some indication in the statutory language that it's to have retroactive effect. Now, you jailhouse lawyers out there are saying, yeah, I thought we had a rule against ex post facto laws here, don't we? Well, let me find that part of the Constitution. I think it's Article 1, Section 8. As you were, Section 9. Yeah. Article 1, Section 9, Paragraph 4. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. So what is an ex post facto law? Ex post facto. Post means after. Facto, of course, means past, from, after the fact. That means that laws that criminalize something that was not criminal. Let's talk about the criminal law. Criminal law can only criminalize something that happens after it's enacted. If I were to sell counterfeit cannabis on the street corner today, and a law passes tomorrow making it illegal to sell counterfeit cannabis, I couldn't be prosecuted under that law. That would be an ex post facto law. However, the ex post facto law only applies to criminal prosecutions. Is that what the Constitution says? Nope. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. Doesn't say anything about civil cases or criminal cases or anything else. How would you know then that it only applies to civil cases? Well, call up a lawyer, of course. Yeah. Do some research. That's what the case law says. And or more than likely, at the time that the Constitution was adopted, there was a strong feeling against ex post facto criminal laws, but not civil laws. Probably a little originalism there.
So just a quick clarification. The case against Rodriguez has to do with violating a law that hadn't been instituted yet when she was first under contract.
That's right.
Okay. Once the law was enacted, could she still continue the contract? Could it be grandfather?
Don't even think about using that word. Say, no, she couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, if there would be no incumbents clause, unless there was an incumbents clause in the statute. If it says contracts entered into prior to the effective date hereof
are still
may continue until their expiration date, then she could. But don't even think about using the word grandfathered.
I had to.
Wow.
Everybody's a little racist.
Do you have a bar of soap back there, Jose?
I'll stop. Today will be my last day.
All right.
I'm trying to quit.
Okay. Next, I've got Joe Biden versus the governor. Now, why is Joe Biden fighting with the governor? It's not so much a fight with the governor. It's just that he's trying to make himself into a meme of the governor. And this is from my buddy Jonathan Turley. Jonathan Turley says, Biden's Red Queen Justice. Let's take a short break, and we'll come back to Red Queen Justice.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Okay, so here we go. Joe Biden versus the governor. And this is from my friend Jonathan Turley. Biden's Red Queen Justice. Long after the sentence, the Biden administration is about to render a verdict. You'll recall the Red Queen. No, the punishment first, then the verdict. Below is a slightly augmented version of As You Were. At the height of the Stalinist purges, Soviet Internal Affairs Minister Lavrentiy Beria famously boasted, "Show me the man and I'll find you the crime." This kind of sounds like the January 6th hearings, doesn't it? Yeah, the January 6th hearing, they're trying very hard to be open and even-handed and reach justice by pinning a tail on Donald Trump.
Where's the Amnesty International?
That January 6th thing, we already know what the object of the whole thing is. Why pretend? Anyhow, going back to Turley here, Beria famously boasted, "Show me the man and I'll find you the crime." U.S. Border Patrol agents may be wondering if the Beria standard is back in vogue with the Biden administration. Fox News has reported that the Department of Homeland Security is moving to charge several agents with administrative violations after they were falsely accused of whipping Haitian migrants last September in Texas. Remember that? Remember when the thousands of people were crossing the Rio Grande at Laredo, Texas. And they weren't all from Mexico. A lot of them were from Haiti. How did they get from Haiti to Mexico? The agents likely felt their fates were sealed the minute Biden promised to punish them before an investigation had even started. So as soon as the news broke, Biden said, I promise you these people will be punished. All in the name of justice. Either the president was wrong or the agents must be guilty or something. The controversy began when Border Patrol responded to a large influx of undocumented migrants in Del Rio on September 19. Officials ordered a mounted unit to an underdefended part of the border. Yeah, right under the bridge. Mounted units are commonly used by federal, state, and local police agencies for crowd control. The agents found themselves facing a large group of Haitian migrants crossing the border, and they positioned themselves on the river's edge to block entry. A photographer captured the scene, which included agents using bridle reins to guide their skittish horses. Well, the entire videotape clearly shows the agents using the reins on their mounts, not on the migrants. Some clearly misleading still shots appeared to make it look like the opposite was happening. Condemnations immediately erupted from politicians and pundits. Some media reports presented the abuse allegations as fact, as the whipping of Haitian asylum seekers. Now, here's somebody who never gets it wrong. Representative Maxine Waters, a Democrat from California, also known as Auntie Max, declared that the alleged whipping was, quote, worse than what we witnessed in slavery.
She witnessed?
Yeah, well, she's pretty old. And condemned the cowboys who were running down Haitians and using their reins to whip them. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. You can always count on Chucky, right? What was the name of that movie about Chucky?
Chucky.
Chucky, yeah. Senate Majority Leader Chucky decried images of inhumane treatment of Haitian migrants by Border Patrol, including the use of whips. And Representative Ayanna Pressley, a member of the squad, described the incident as white supremacist behavior. President Biden rode the wave of media outrage, declaring, quote, it was horrible. What to see as you saw, to see people treated like they did, horses nearly running over them, and people being strapped. It's outrageous. I promise you, those people will pay. Mr. President, don't you think we should have an investigation? Who is that? Off with his head. Of course, the Soviet Union's Beria was a model of efficiency compared to Biden's Homeland Security Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, who promised last September that the investigation would be completed in a matter of days, not weeks. Then months dragged on, and Mayorkas and his department went into virtual radio silence. The problem for Mayorkas was that the whipping story was not just false, but was clearly false from the outset. This is going to take a little longer to investigate. The photographer who captured the images of the incident, Paul Ratchie, stated within the first 24 hours that it was false and nobody saw a Border Patrol agent whipping migrants. That was obvious from the videotape also. However, the president, some congressional Democrats, and many in the media had already adjudicated the case. Trial's over, folks. The agents had to be guilty of something. Crappy personality, bad breath, messy hair, trousers they can't hold. No, that's Clint. So the agents wallowed in suspension for months. On the 6-month anniversary of the incident, I wrote a column on President Biden's Red Queen Justice, noting that the case followed a classic response to such scandals, which is to bury them in investigation and wait for the public attention to wane. I noted that officials also could avoid responsibility by changing the question. For example, what began as an investigation into whether agents used reins to whip migrants might be converted into a long investigation into the use of horses in crowd control operations. That will take a lot of time, and when the report is issued, the actual whipping allegation can be buried in a broader policy debate. That will allow the media as well as the administration to focus on the policy as opposed to the personnel involved. It's not clear if the administration will clear the agents of whipping migrants. Okay, I'm going to have to come back to this after the big halftime show. Who was it on the phone?
Kellis, he wanted to say he has it on fact that that one of the agents voted for Trump.
Okay. All right.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Abortion decision likely this week, maybe today. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The U.S. Supreme Court scheduled to issue more rulings today in cases they heard this term, possibly including a ruling in the Mississippi abortion case.
There are over a dozen cases pending with opinions scheduled for today and on Thursday before the U.S. Supreme Court goes on recess. The most anticipated decisions on abortion, in which a leaked draft opinion last month signaled the majority of justices were in favor of giving states the right to make laws, thus limiting abortion access. The High Court also takes up gun rights. It is set to decide on whether New York can demand residents demonstrate proper cause to carry a handgun in public.
Fox's Jeff Manasso. The High Court's calendar shows today and Thursday are the last 2 days this term when opinions are scheduled to be released. President Biden appearing to suggest that high gasoline prices actually present the country with an opportunity.
We have a chance here to make a fundamental turn toward renewable energy, electric vehicles, and not just electric vehicles, but across the board. And that's something we should be. My team is going to be sitting down with the CEOs of the major oil companies this week and try to get an explanation how they justify making $35 billion.
The president also says he's considering a pause in the federal gasoline tax. That would save drivers more than 18 cents a gallon, says he'll decide by the end of this week. State lawmakers in California have decided the state will not pause its state tax on gasoline, as Governor Newsom had asked. Instead, it will increase 10 days from now, nearly 3 cents a gallon. It's primary election day in Virginia, and in Arkansas, Georgia, and Alabama, runoff elections will be held from last month's primaries. Another public session scheduled today by the House Select January 6th Committee, one of two planned for this week. America is listening to Fox News.
Today, it's Kiko the Carabelle. My sister Pika and I are here to share some great news for moms and dads, and kids too. New programs to help working families with child care starts April 5th, and Mom says so many more families now qualify. Visit GuamChildCare.com for more information and to apply today.
Program Penila is brought to Guam's working families by DPHSS, GIDA, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, and Lieutenant Governor Justin Ori.
This ad is paid for with federal funds administered by the Department of Public Health and Social Services.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
A Texas newspaper, citing documents they've obtained, reports police with high-powered weapons and at least one ballistic shield were in the hallway at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, within 19 minutes of the gunman's arrival last month. The Austin American-Statesman says gunfire could be heard from inside the classroom for as long as 29 minutes before officers entered that room and killed the gunman. Police in Tennessee investigating what they are calling disturbing letters found at several churches.
Campbell County Sheriff Robbie Goins says 7 letters were found as of Monday, left on the doors of 5 Baptist churches, a business, and a Masonic lodge. He says the typed-up letters contain some disturbing things, but nothing specific. Goins also dismissed rumors of a possible shooting in the works being related to the letters. Law enforcement stepped up patrols near the churches on Sunday as a precaution. Investigators are reviewing surveillance video where one of the letters was found to look for leads. Goins says he thinks the community is safe, but his office is not taking any chances. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
Terrell Brooks Jr., the man charged with plowing his SUV through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin last November, now adopting an insanity defense. 6 people died there. In Seattle, a judge is being criticized for going too easy on criminals.
5 people are shot in downtown Seattle. A local gang member is convicted. King County Superior Court Judge Averill Rothrock goes 4 years below the sentencing guidelines and 6 years under what prosecutors requested.
The struggle in your community with gangs and gun violence matters to me.
The same judge who did not return our calls and emails released 2 teenagers charged with a string of violent takeover robberies. Prosecutors say they promptly cut off their ankle monitors and robbed a pot shop, this time killing an employee. There has been a movement the last several years toward bail reform and softer sentencing guidelines. Sympathetic judges have gotten elected and appointed.
Fox's Dan Springer, and I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Yeah, so here we are, a big halftime show that we all know and love so well. I've got to go back for a second to the story about Clint and Bill 261. Bill 261 was Titlahi's bill, the one that was introduced first, the one that would have canceled gasoline taxes indefinitely. Forever. However, Joe San Augustine outmaneuvered the speaker and was able to get his pass that provides a 180-day moratorium on the gas tax. Now, Terlahi's bill was 261, 261-38, and I want to tell you that 3 senators distinguished themselves on that bill, and they deserve the necessary recognition from that. The 3 senators are Munga Barnes, Frank Blas, and Amanda Shelton.
Let me guess.
They were so slow and so stupid and so far behind the power curve that when the roll was called on Bill 261, they didn't know how to vote. Can you imagine that? After all this talk and all of the press and everything like that, you would have thought you could have woken them up in the middle of a sound sleep and they would have said aye or nay, right? Not these two guys, not these three.
Nope.
Senator Frank Blas Jr., pass. Senator Tina Rose Munga Barnes, pass. Senator Amanda Shelton, pass. They didn't even know whether to vote for or against the bill.
They forgot which one Lou told them to vote for.
Yeah, they forgot their directions. You know, it's like the pitcher looking at the catcher and waving off the sign, right? Yeah, so you have been added. Of course, Shelton, you were already there. So you've been to this rodeo before. So we now have Clint, Tina Rose Munga Barnes, Frank Blas, and Shelton. Shelton, Blas, Munga Barnes, and Rigel.
The entire bill they passed? Like they didn't vote the second time around?
I don't know. I don't even care. You pass once, that's enough for me. I'd be on it because the bill only got 6 votes. So they must have voted no when they saw that the bill wasn't going to pass. Now, if there had been 8 votes the first time around, then they could have voted for the bill.
Maybe somebody confused yay with pass.
Could be. But I used to go into an explanation about strategic voting and what senators really intend when they pass in order to see how other people are going to vote. But I'm not going to do that anymore. If you pass instead of voting, I'm going to call you out for what you are, a dumbass. Yeah. So I didn't mention that in the context of Clint's bill. I guess I called him a dumbass for enough reasons as it was. But anyhow, that's the rest of the story. Okay, I'm going back here to Joe Biden versus the governor and Biden's Red Queen Justice. The president, some congressional Democrats, and many in the media had already adjudicated the case. The agents had to be guilty of something. Now, Kellis called just before the halftime show started, and I think Kellis told Jose that he'd heard a rumor that one of those Border Patrol agents may have voted for Trump. Is that it?
That's what he heard.
Yeah, that's enough. That's certainly enough. So the agents wallowed in suspension for months. On the 6-month anniversary of the incident, I wrote a column on President Biden's Red Queen Justice, noting that the case followed a classic response to such scandals, which is to bury them in investigation, etc. It's not clear if the administration will clear the agents of whipping migrants, though such charge would presumably have been treated as a criminal matter. However, it is not clear why, if such assault did occur, it would take nearly 10 months to find a violation. Whipping migrants is not commonly treated as an administrative matter. Yeah, well, let's see, maybe they'll suspend them. You whipped 1 migrant, that's 1 day. 2 migrants, 2 days. 3 migrants, 2.5 days. It's a special package. If Fox News report is true, however, the border agents may be found guilty of still unknown administrative offenses. For many in Washington, the important thing would be that the agents are found guilty of something, anything. It's all reminiscent of how President Biden rushed to public judgment after the fatal shooting of 2 men and the wounding of a 3rd during riots in Kenosha in August 2020. At the time, Biden strongly implied that the accused shooter, Kyle Rittenhouse, was a white supremacist. I don't think it was strongly implied. I think he came right out and said it. Despite no evidence supporting that claim, even after many accusations about Rittenhouse were debunked and a jury acquitted him of all criminal charges. Biden said publicly that the verdict left, quote, many Americans feeling angry and concerned, myself included. How do we get stuck with some idiot like this for president? God. I guess he's got a good excuse, though. Alzheimer's, senile debility,
Putin,
senile imbecility. Similarly, after protests in Washington's Lafayette Park in June 2020, Biden repeated a now debunked claim that the park was cleared with tear gas to enable a photo op for then President Trump, an allegation that falsely impugned the integrity of then Attorney General Bill Barr. Bill Barr. Did you hear that one about two guys walked into a bar?
I have not. I've heard probably a version.
That's the joke. That's the whole joke.
What?
Two guys walked into a bar.
Build it and budge.
It's just the joke. The ordinarily joke, two guys walked into a tavern, right? Two guys walked into a tavern and the bartender said, right? Well, here's the newest one. Two guys walked into a bar. End of joke. From the outset, there was ample evidence undermining that claim, but neither Biden nor many in the media waited for an investigation to establish the facts. Later, the Justice Department's Inspector General disproved the claim. He is now the Inspector General of Marine Affairs in the Florida Keys, which was the farthest away they could post him. Now, as with those previous debunked claims, Biden knows he will have a cooperative media that is unlikely to challenge his version of what the Border Patrol agents did. Or actually, more importantly, Jose, what the Border Patrol agents didn't do. Because they were equally invested in the earlier inaccurate condemnation of the Border Patrol agents' actions. In announcing the agents would be punished before an investigation had even begun, Biden, like Alice in Wonderland's Red Queen, insisted on sentence first, verdict afterwards. The agents likely do not hold out much hope, given how there has been little acknowledgement, let alone an apology from the president, who remained silent for months after his original claim was debunked. They will finally have the verdict to go with the sentence. The offense, of course, to be named. Yeah, the Red Queen. The Red Queen is where you find her. Okay, I want to go back once again to Dan Swavely versus Maneka Flores. This was the write-up that the Daily News did of the Hybrid Land Commission's approved tentative development plans for the Vista Del Mar Friday. And, of course, the Daily News jumped right in there with a misleading headline, or not a misleading headline, a hat-tipping headline. You kind of know where the folks at the Daily News stand on this one. The headline, despite public testimony, Vista Del Mar gets approval to go forward. So we had a public hearing. And maybe I should spend some time on the show telling people what happens at a public hearing. There is an issue, and ordinarily someone will explain what the issue is, and then people can go and sign in and sit down and talk into a microphone and give their opinion as to how the issue should be resolved. And it's pretty much a free-form undertaking. You can pretty much say whatever you want to. For instance, You could come out against the what's the name of that? The Del Mar. You could come out against the Del Mar development because you don't like the name. We should name the name. We should name the place after some historical figure. Well, that would be reasonable because people could understand what your objection was. And there was some basis to it that other people could understand, even if maybe they didn't agree with it. The other approach is to come before a public hearing and just lay out your emotional baggage. Try to put as much emotion into the situation as you possibly can, figuring that as a general principle, when emotion and reason collide, oftentimes emotion controls the day. Ask Angel Sablon about testifying at Mayor Bloss's sentencing hearing in the district court. He didn't come forward and say anything other than the man's like my brother. I love him like a brother. So emotional. So we had Nicole Delisle Duenas. And this is what Nicole Delisle Duenas said. If this goes through, this will be a desecration of ancestral Chamorro areas. Now, this is not invoking a landing by flying saucers. It's just about as inapposite to what they're talking about there. You know, if you had actually identified something particular about that piece of real estate, and you wanted to come forward and say, did you know that the first, et cetera, was done? Maybe you might have something, but just in a wide open desecration of ancestral Chamorro areas. That's every place on this island, except the one exception that I was able to point out yesterday, which was what, Jose?
Taki Island.
Taki Island, yeah.
And the Paseo as well.
Well, the Paseo...
It used to be. It's reconfigured.
Yeah, it was plowed into the bay. Yeah, but arguably the Paseo. Yeah.
Definitely Taki Island.
Definitely Taki Island. Yeah. Or Lacia Casil. She said she had 2,587 signatures, but they weren't all from Tamuning. But she said it's okay because shoreline and the beach belong to all the people of Guam. It's funny, I couldn't go on my own property during the pandemic. Yeah, and then we also had, let's see, we had, I thought we had one other here somewhere, Moneca.
The one with, you'll have blood on your hands.
Yeah, that's the best one of all. And then we had Moneca Flores. I am deeply disturbed with the graphic images of destruction and desecration. The D word. For many generations, we witnessed. Now, how old do you suppose Moneca Flores is?
Definitely not many generations.
Yeah. 3, possibly. 2 more than likely, right? For many generations, we've witnessed horrible desecration, destruction, and contamination here in our own land. And we have a legacy of irresponsible development. And our people have been deprived of having a voice in our people, right? Decisions that will harm all that we've inherited from our ancestors. Now, I'd like to see the probate documents on that one. And then she said, been deprived of a voice as she sits there speaking at a public hearing. Yeah.
What is interesting is you're right. This is an emotional appeal. It probably with no expectations of results, just to be heard and published.
And grandstanding.
But you have land that is private, obviously bought from someone who's local, right? And we also have something called SHPO that ought to have been involved and is probably working closely with this company. So those are, if they want to go after somebody, go after the previous landowner for not being, for just selling out.
Just selling it for the money
Just
and
for
not
the
paying
money.
any attention
Yeah.
to the culture.
Right. And it's not to say that they might not have an argument, but right now there is no argument.
None.
None whatsoever.
They had their opportunity, and instead of making one, they just came and did an emotional dump.
But if they were frequent listeners to Tall Tales, they know they do have an opportunity for a real complaint.
Exactly.
But we're not going to say any more.
No, exactly. Okay, and then Maneka wraps it up like this. Really, you will be responsible for the destruction of a very significant area for our community. And she also said, if you do move forward, you know this is like blood on your hands. Yeah. Remember that time, Jose, that you and I were talking about Jackie Robinson's batting average in 1949? And I was right and you were wrong, but you wouldn't give in and tell me I was right. Remember I said, Jose, if you don't get right with this, you got blood on your hands.
Well, I was clenching my fists very tightly.
So, see, this is the tool for argument. When someone doesn't agree with you and won't go along with what you want, you must tell them, if you don't see it my way, you'll have blood on your hands. Now, I wonder if Maneka worked for one of the companies that sells hand soap here on the island. Maneka says use ivory soap. It's really good for moving that blood on your hands that's caused by having really crappy opinions about our culture. Yeah, so that's what she said. Now, if Maneka and Delisle and Lasia, if you really want to see how it's done, listen to this. Listen to this. Dan Swavely said he has often heard the term responsible development, but the exact definition of that term has been elusive. Quote, today I think at last I can offer one credible definition of responsible development, and it is this development entirely on private property within the current zone with only allowable uses, with zero variances, after 4 legally noticed public hearings, which changes made to the proposed development in response to each public hearing, and with the unanimous resolution of support from the Planning Council of the municipality in which the development is proposed. That, I submit, is responsible development, and that's Vista Del Mar. Yeah, that is persuasive. That packs a punch. Yeah, now I suppose he could have spiced it up a little bit by saying, if you don't go along with, after he finished, if you don't go along with my evaluation here, it's the death of democracy. No one who wants to build even a doghouse will be safe on our island in the, what a contrast. Yeah, so I've got a little advice for you, ladies. 2 bits of advice. If you're always going to try to punch above your weight, you're going to get knocked on your ass a lot. And second, if you do try to punch above your weight, try not leading with your nose, because that's exactly what you gave Dan Swavely the perfect threshold for a slam dunk. All right. Next on the card, OPA versus 2 mayors. I got into that yesterday. Yeah. Okay. Next, Gura versus Michael San Nicolas. I've already covered that in a different one. And then I've got Cruz versus Champion. But before that, let's go to the 7th inning stretch.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Okay, here we go. We've got Cruz versus Champas. Hey, you were champion. This is an older story, but because it's Officer Champion, Chris Champion, the hero of Jeep Throat, as it were. I thought I would keep it on the calendar till I actually got to it, but it's a little bit old. 2 Guam Police Department officers are under investigation after a judge called out their conflicting testimonies in a criminal trial. Officers Chris Champion and Benjamin Cruz are named in an April 1 decision and order from Judge Vern Paris that suppressed the admission of evidence in a case involving drugs and illegal firearms. Paris, in the decision and order, noted that the 2 police officers' differing accounts of the arrest of Benny Nauta Jr. The investigation regarding conflicting statements between 2 officers is ongoing, police spokesman Berlin Savella confirmed to Candid. The judge suppressed the evidence obtained from a January 2, 2020 car search following a traffic stop for a defective license plate light that led to a search of Nauta's car. Have you noticed how many defective license plate lights there are on cars in which there are illegal drugs?
I hope there's no correlation.
Really? Have you ever had the license plate light on any of your cars go bad on you, Jose?
I don't even know how to check that.
Yeah.
Just turn it on and go.
Just walk around behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you should check it before you decide to run your drugs to your neighbor's house.
Yeah, don't put any drugs in your car till you check. In fact, if you're out there selling meth, I would suggest that you buy a couple dozen license plate lights and make it a package deal. You give me $500 and I'll give you a package of meth and a license plate light.
That could be more valuable than meth itself.
Actually, it actually could, yeah. The search led to Nauta's arrest after police found a revolver and a meth pipe with suspected meth residue in it. Nauta moved to throw out the evidence and thus the charges, telling the court he twice denied the officers their request to search his car. Now, this is really poor writing. Moved to throw out the evidence, throw it out of the car. The word is suppress here. Move to suppress the evidence. The court, however, quote, the court is unable to ascertain whether defendant actually gave informed and voluntary consent to a search of his vehicle, Mr. Paris wrote in his decision and order. Both Cruz and Champion testified that the defendant objected at first to the request to search the truck. According to the background Paris gave in his decision and order, Cruz pulled over Nauta for a defective license plate light and expired registration decal. He then noticed there was an adult passenger and 4 children in the front seat of a single cab pickup truck. It must have been crowded in there, or must have been really small kids. Nauta did not have a driver's license. The cop asked the defendant to step out of the truck, then patted him down for weapons or drugs. I think he patted him down for weapons. I don't think you can pat down for drugs on that kind of a stop. He found none. He then asked Nauta if he had any illegal drugs or weapons, to which he denied. Officer Cruz asked the defendant if he could search the vehicle, which the defendant responded no. Cruz did not allow him to leave the scene and told him to call for his ride. His parents showed up. Other officers began to show up. Probably Winchell's was closed. They didn't have any place else to go. Cruz would not let Nauta leave the scene and told Nauta to wait. He did not give Nauta a reason for the delay. About an hour later, Champion showed up, having just closed Jerry Kitchen. Defendant testified that Officer Champion asked him to search his vehicle, to which defendant again responded no. Defendant testified that after Champion asked defendant a second time, he told him that if he let him search the vehicle, that he would not be arrested, that he would be able to be picked up and go home. Defendant testified that is why he agreed to let Officer Champion search the vehicle. Defendant testified he was hesitant at first because he did not want to agree, but said yes after Officer Champion said, "You just gotta trust me." Guy with that much credibility. Wouldn't you trust him, Jose? Yeah.
Only if I had a red Jeep.
Defendant testified that, they don't tell us what color the car is, right? Defendant testified that Officer Champion asked him 3 to 4 times to search the vehicle. The 2 police officers, under separate testimony before the court, pointed at each other on the accusation one or both of them caused the illegal search. The officers gave conflicting testimony as to how defendant subsequently changed his mind and consented to a search of the truck. Cruz testified the defendant had not changed his mind until he spoke with Champion, and Champion testified the defendant changed his mind after further speaking with Cruz. Now, after getting this far into the story, I have only one question, Jose. Who's on first?
Third base.
Yeah. If Nauta's version is true, then it was Champion who illegally manipulated consent of the vehicle search. Defendant testified that he objected to the search and only consented after Champion promised him he would not get in trouble. Not only does defendant's testimony conflict with the officers, but the officers' testimonies conflict with each other. You know, with guys like this for the prosecution, Nauta didn't need any defense witnesses. Accordingly, the government has not proven voluntary consent by a preponderance of the evidence, and any evidence seized from defendant's truck must be suppressed. I would hope so. This decision in order now raises questions about the testimonies these 2 officers may have made in the past. Now, are they a match set? Are they always sent out on patrol together because they work so well together? And certainly will raise doubts on any testimony they give in the future. An attorney commented on condition of anonymity. Oh, that's powerful. There was an attorney. He didn't want to tell him. He was an anonymous comment. If they'd have called me, I would have told them the same thing, but I would have told them my name. But they probably wouldn't have. They wouldn't have used that in the news story because only anonymous has credibility. Champion was the subject of a police investigation last year regarding his conduct in the matter of the red Jeep that crashed into Jerry Kitchen. The former member of the now disgraced Madania task force was the responding officer on the scene, which involved a well-connected police officer whose father is under criminal indictment on allegations he abused his power in law enforcement. Several members of the Madania task force have been subject of various investigations related to criminal and administrative misconduct. The task force was created by former Lieutenant Governor Ray Tenorio. Well, that's enough right there. Ray Tenorio, and specialized in marksmanship, pistol marksmanship. Ray Tenorio, a former cop who was on trial himself for grabbing a police officer's gun at a crowded Tucumán Glock party in summer of 2018. That encounter led to his humiliating defeat by now Governor Lulian Guerrero in November that year. He fled Guam to live in a small North Carolina town shortly after he was acquitted in 2019. You know what the name of that North Carolina town is, Jose? Palookaville. If you want to go there, there are only one-way tickets to Palookaville.
That whole paragraph is, how do you know you're reading a Canet News story?
Exactly, yeah. The National Enquirer, right? Yeah, Police Stephen Ignacio disbanded the Madania Drug Task Force in months following Tenorio's departure after multiple reports of police corruption were lodged against some of its members. It's classic candid. All right, let's see. It's a little early to go to Churchill Downs. Next item on the card is Leavin Camacho versus, I don't know if it's Peter or Dick. He's a lawyer. We'll find out when we get in here. AG clarifies outcome of robbery case. The man who faces up to a quarter of a century in prison for admitting he robbed a 61-year-old woman Thanksgiving morning in 2019 isn't getting away with brutally beating her unconscious, according to the Guam Office of the Attorney General. Frank Patrick Itasi is on the hook for attempting to kill a Dadido barbershop owner. You know, I've had some bad haircuts in my day, and it kind of got me a little bit aimed, but I never got that mad about it. Wow. I want to make sure I don't go there for a haircut. It must have been a really bad haircut. The AG stated in a press release in a response to an article published Friday in the Post. Itasi pleaded guilty Thursday before Superior Court Judge Elise Iriarte to first-degree robbery as a first-degree felony and theft of property as a second-degree felony. The beating of the victim and the theft at the shop constitute the crime of robbery, categorized as a first-degree felony, the most serious category recognized under Guam law. The AG clarified in the statement, adding that Itasi was convicted of attempting to kill a person during the course of committing theft. It doesn't sound like first-degree robbery to me. He faces 10 to 25 years in prison and will be sentenced on October 6. Per the plea deal, the court dismissed the remaining charges, which included another charge of first-degree robbery as a first-degree felony, felonious restraint as a third-degree felony, strangulation as a third-degree felony, along with special allegations of the crime being committed against a vulnerable victim. Attorney General Leavin Camacho said the Post story was clickbait. Clickbait. You want to see more? Click here, and you'll see a 45-minute movie of Levin Camacho explaining, right? People rely on the media assuming some level of journalistic integrity, and we hope that in the future all reporters will strike the right balance between fulfilling this obligation and coming up with sensational headlines to generate user engagement and revenue, said Camacho. Itasi's defense attorney, Peter Santos, not Dick Santos, it's Peter Santos, also known as Repeat Santos. Peter Santos responded differently, stating, "It was good. It was not misleading. It's evident that A.G. Camacho is more concerned about his social media image as evidenced by his own exaggerations and twisting of facts in past news releases by his office," said Santos. "They don't have the privilege of controlling how the media presents a story. If they want positive stories, then do good work." Camacho is seeking re-election. Santos, who previously worked for the AG's office and is a tailgater, is considering running as his opponent. All right, good story.
I have a question about plea deals.
Yeah.
I have no experience with them, thank God.
Let's hope that you never do.
Is that, I'm sure every attorney or assistant prosecutor have a philosophy on it. Is it always something that's considered, or does it depend on the crime? Usually because the prosecutor may not have a case to bring to court, or what determines whether to offer a plea deal or not?
Well, it's, as you've touched on some of the major points there, it is a complicated undertaking. But the last time I read, nationally, like over 90% of the cases go by plea bargain.
Just so we don't have to waste time in court?
Well, that's part of it. One of the things that the lawyers will tell you about any case, that a poor settlement quite often beats a good trial. If you enter into a plea bargain, you're not going to lose. And anybody who's ever had any experience with the courts knows that going into court on any case has an element of crapshoot to it. That you could look at a case that looks like it's an absolute slam dunk, and the jury comes out with a different verdict. Then there's the matter of charging. And, you know, an assistant attorney general, if he were doing a Brinks robbery, would probably charge all kinds of things like I just read off here, various kinds of crimes, and probably would add a count of illegal parking. So oftentimes, the crime charged out in the indictment is overcharged, because it gives the prosecution a little bit more leverage. Prosecutors evaluate the case, and their willingness to plea bargain varies inversely to the confidence they have in winning in trial. The stronger the case, the harder the bargain. How many defendants there are has a lot to do with it, too. If you've got multiple defendants, all of whom committed some heavy raps, the first guy to plea bargain gets the best deal because he's got the most to sell. So he may be the most heinous of the criminals, but he may get the best deal because he'll rat out the others. So all of these factors enter into it. In our own situation here, according to things that I've said right here on Tall Tales that I've gotten from people in the office, they're very short-handed. So if you're short-handed, plea bargains take a whole lot less time than trial. Because if, say you're in a 3-day trial, that's probably several days of preparation spread out over the time.
And this is not a defense or anything else for the AG's office, but has there been any analysis or correlation between the amount of arrests and crimes that are being committed to why we seemingly have a lot of cases being pled out or dismissed or otherwise?
I don't think anybody keeps those statistics. If it were anyone, it would be the Attorney General. And he would probably say that's just clickbait. Yeah, good questions, Jose. Plea bargaining is very complicated. All right, let's head for Churchill Downs.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
All right, next item on the card is Marxism versus the USA. And, of course, I've talked about this a lot on Tall Tales. Our country is coming apart. And it's coming apart because of something that started in 1922 called the Frankfurt School. It was aided and abetted by a guy named Antonio Gramsci in the 1930s. It was picked up by a couple of the remnants of the Frankfurt School still in the U.S. in the 60s. And when the death of George Floyd caused it all to come out in all its glory, cultural Marxism. And almost everything that we're dealing with now has that root. So here's the column that I'm reading. It's by a guy named D.W. Wilbur. There's a cancer eating America. Ever since at least the 1960s and the Vietnam era, our nation has been on a downward spiral where traditional morality and family values have been discarded. What was once right is now wrong, and what was wrong is now right. The Vietnam era saw the rise of violent activism and mass protests, certainly some of it justified against an unjust war that American politicians had sent American boys to fight and die in. Back on the home front, college campuses where young people had once attended school to receive an education were now taken over by radical communist faculties and administrators. And those people are now running the country. Indoctrination in Marxism was the bill of goods being sold to young, impressionable minds rather than a well-rounded quality education. Racially motivated rioting occurred in the streets of many American cities, also some of it justified because of the discrimination and racism against Black Americans that demanded change. I don't know if I'll go along with rioting is justified. The Weather Underground, it's guys like Bill Ayers and Bernadette Dorn, the best friends of President Barack Obama.
Boommakers.
Groups committed crimes and set off bombs, killing police officers. America was literally under fire. The 1973 decision by the American Psychiatric Association to no longer consider homosexuality as a psychiatric disorder while welcomed by many, also opened the door to allow more and more alphabet letters to be added to the list of protected classes. And that 1973 decision by the American Psychiatric Association is a study in itself. I read a book that covered it, and this was not follow the science. Let me put it that way. Now, before the homosexual community starts demanding that I be hanged, drawn, and quartered, and my head stuck on a spike in the town square, in no way am I advocating that homosexuals be forced back into the closet or discriminated against or abused in any way. I simply really don't care one way or the other about their lifestyle. I'm merely pointing out that the 1973 APA decision contributed to the change in America's view of morality. Now, if you look at the two Supreme Court cases that deal with that, the first one was Lawrence versus Texas, and the second one was, well, that's right, it overruled Lawrence. Bowers versus Hardwick. Lawrence versus Texas. Mr. Justice Scalia wrote the opinion and said that our law, as all laws, are grounded in morality. Or maybe I think that was in his dissent in Lawrence versus Texas. And he said when you disconnect morality from law, you leave neither one of them standing. And boy, was he right. You know, we know that it's wrong to kill somebody. We know that because we were told a long time ago, thou shalt not kill. All right. Traditional values and morality were no longer in vogue. If one continues to hold traditional beliefs, they are called haters. Marriage is one man and one woman. Only women can have children. It's wrong to kill babies in the womb. Haters gotta hate. Maybe it's time for some alphabet letters to protect people of traditional religious faith. We'll call them the TRMFV group, the Traditional Religion, Morality, and Family Values group. I'll sign up for that outfit.
Triumph?
Oh, yeah, I'll pay dues. Let's see if politicians speak out to protect their rights under the Constitution. Maybe they can apply to get a whole month dedicated to them as well. Honestly, it's really up to each individual to follow their own conscience on matters of morality. Churches could once be relied upon to offer moral guidance that you could put your faith in. But even churches have proven to oftentimes be less than stellar examples of morality and traditional family values in recent years. There is no shortage of stories of Catholic priests who abuse children, or of pastors from other denominations who use their positions for financial gain and to take sexual advantage of young, impressionable female members. What I do care most about, though, is the deadly violence that keeps happening in our communities, schools in particular. Young children's lives ended by a crazed killer who was an outcast of society. And I care about the useless response from politicians to these events, grasping for answers that will make absolutely no difference. Violence will continue regardless of how many laws they enact, how many guns they ban, or the speeches they give. Evil always finds a way. Now, of course, nowadays in 2022, you really shouldn't be talking about evil because there's no such thing as evil.
You could be hurting his feelings.
Exactly. And we live in an evil society here in America in 2022. America is being eaten away by a cancer that's been growing inside for decades. Our institutions have been destroyed from the inside in the name of diversity and equity. Remember Antonio Gramsci and the Long March through the institutions? The police are no longer respected and can no longer effectively do their jobs to protect their communities. You have crime waves in the major cities, and what is the response of the elected leaders? Defund the police, defund the police. That will make our statistics look a lot better. There won't be anywhere near as many arrests. As a result, gangs run wild in our streets, taking what they want when they want it, out of some distorted sense of entitlement, or just because they can, and often harming innocent people out of nothing more than sheer meanness. How many times have we seen that? There's a game that kids in big cities play, sneaking up behind an old person and knocking them. I can't remember the name.
I know what you're talking about. It's...
All right, well, I'm at the end of the show here already. I got to wind up with a traditional greeting. Let's go, Brandon!
KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Could this be Abortion Decision Day? I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Today is one of 2 days remaining on the Supreme Court's calendar this term to issue rulings on cases they've heard this term. It is possible that among the rulings issued today could be one in the Mississippi abortion case, which a leaked draft opinion suggests could overturn Roe v. Wade. Protesters expected at the Supreme Court building today as close as the barricades will allow. President Biden, spending the federal holiday yesterday at his home in Delaware, says he's considering a pause in the federal tax on gasoline to bring down pump prices as much as 18 cents a gallon. The president telling reporters he'll have a final decision by week's end. House Majority Whip James Clyburn of South Carolina is on board with the idea.
We need to equip especially rural Americans, with some relief with the gas tax.
Indiana Republican Congressman Jim Banks says changing the president's policies would be a bigger help.
We need to make America energy independent again. We need to roll back the incredible sheer number of regulations that the Biden administration has put in place.
The president facing sharp criticism on social media after appearing to suggest yesterday that high gasoline prices are a good opportunity to make a fundamental turn in this country to clean energy. Vice President Kamala Harris speaking at the Smithsonian Institute yesterday on the Juneteenth federal holiday, marking the day that slavery ended in 1865.
Let this be a day that is a day to celebrate the principle of freedom, but to speak about it honestly and accurately, both in the context of history and current application.
This is the second year that Juneteenth has been celebrated as a national holiday. A Texas newspaper, the Austin American-Statesman, raising more questions about the police response to last month's shooting in Uvalde, reporting officers with heavy weapons and at least one ballistic shield were in the school minutes after the gunman